3033 Ad, the Flaming Tower. The man shouts that the strength of the fire gray bird, which towers over him by several meters in height, is almost running out, so he orders his comrades to finish it off, which makes another man and a girl instantly grab their own weapons, instantly rushing at that one. The lady attacks from her wand with a huge blue ball, lightning from which immediately strikes the bird's body, while other comrades attack with swords. At some point, the feathered one falls dead on the building, and then on the ground, clearly unable to continue this grueling battle. When the heroes are back on Earth, the blonde one says that the guardian of the Flaming Tower is finally finished and now only remains. But the phrase is finished for him by two allies who are standing behind. Now it only remains for him to die. He, not understanding what they mean, immediately hurries to turn around to them. Only at the same second a dagger pierces his chest, while a smile plays on the lips of the girl and the man, and the handle of the weapon itself sticks out of his body. Blood immediately spits out of his mouth with a cough, and he himself stands in a daze, not understanding why. They fought shoulder to shoulder for so many years, and here, the blue-haired woman only smiles, saying that one monk carries water for himself, two monks carry water, helping each other, and three have no one to carry it. And she also doubts that Xiao Ming is unaware of this truth. The man grins, saying that his strength is too great, and once they get rid of it, then nothing will threaten them. Both hands reach out to Tom before pushing him in the chest, forcing him to fall on his fifth point directly to the floor of the dead body of the bird. He only manages to mutter a curse, which makes the couple realize that he is still alive, and they must erase his body and soul, which immediately helps to raise their weapons to combat readiness. But as soon as they swing, the guardian of the tower immediately raises his head, starting to scream and light up with a bright fiery flame that envelops the hero. Is the fire-feathered bird still alive? The traitors immediately take refuge from the raging flames, immediately going to jump back. Because it's bad, because apparently she wants to self-destruct. At the same moment, there is a big explosion with a high column of flame, while Xiao Ming shouts to Lai Wang and Long Huan that if the next life exists, then he will do everything to make them regret today. Before the fire finally reaches his body, showering with heat, and some kind of escapes from the man's chest. Then a red light, like a star, which immediately hurries to fall somewhere. The status window informs about the identification and processing of the trajectories of the character's fate, and then issues a system load while that same bright red star continues to fall from the sky. The events take place 300 years later, in the city of Kunhai, at the Martial Arts Academy. The teacher of the third group, Liu Zhuxi, tells that 400 years ago 9 towers of darkness fell from the sky, and from that moment the great invasion of abnormal beasts began. Humanity was unable to resist them and were threatened with extinction. Fortunately for them, the rise of martial arts and the emergence of powerful warriors made it possible to overcome this crisis. Humanity is very lucky that he managed to live up to today. And today it's time for the students themselves to look at their deadly enemies, abnormal beasts. The girl pulls the fabric off the cage, and then one of the abnormal animals of the lowest, national level, a hyena, immediately appears in front of them. The students immediately begin to examine her, muttering to themselves, calling her an abomination, before the animal abruptly rushes to the bars of the cage, starting to growl insanely, which makes the teenagers immediately jump back while Liu Zhu decides to continue. In the initial manual about abnormal animals, they should have already received all the necessary knowledge regarding this particular species. And who's going to tell her about hyena's weaknesses now? One of the guys whispers to the others that there are already more than 1,000 species described in the book. Who will remember them all at all? To which the others agree before they fall silent and look back in surprise as soon as some sound reaches their ears. Is someone snoring? Noticing that the students were distracted, the woman herself wants to find out what happened there, while the teenagers stare uncomprehendingly at the dark-haired guy who pressed his back against a tree and peacefully sniffs, seemingly not noticing anything around him at all. The teacher, noticing this, calls the sleeper by name, Xiao Ming, and then tightens her whip, shouting how he dares to sleep at all in her lesson. Are you really tired of living? But then suddenly someone else's scarlet eyes open wide, as if a teenager has just really woken up from a dream, before he immediately gets into a fighting stance, clenching his fist, about to show Lai Wang and Long Huan that they are complete freaks, and then also stops himself abruptly when he feels the intense stares of classmates and women, and then he asks out loud what kind of place it is. Wasn't he supposed to die after the self-destruction of the Firebird? These memories. Ming was reborn after 300 years. The guy begins to laugh, saying that he could not even think that heaven would give him another chance at life, now that he's alive. His past comrades will pay for everything they've done. But apparently, he doesn't even realize that he's saying this to the whole neighborhood, because Liu Zhu immediately runs into him, putting his foot forward and asking what the hell is the reckoning. Boy, did you reread the novel. Xiao himself only manages to stare in surprise at how a red heel flies in his direction, which then digs right into his cheek, causing him to literally do a backflip and slam his face into the tree upside down. The same one continues to shout that apparently life is not nice to him at all since he decided to sleep in her lesson. The guy's body finally falls down with a thud, while the students immediately begin to whisper about what everyone knows about that, how sharp Liu black stockings can be. So, this loser Xiao Ming just ran into a beating. Yes, it seems that he has finally given up, which is not surprising. With such a low vital force index, he will never become a warrior, so there is not much sense for him to understand abnormal beasts. On the lips of the rest of the teenagers, malicious taunts continue to flash. A scum like him should have been kicked out of the academy long ago. They don't understand at all how he still has the conscience to show up in class, barely recover. The brunette rises from the ground, stroking his bruised cheek and asking again about the lesson. But it seems that's how it is. Judging by the memories of the former owner, today is the day of the lesson on the study of abnormal animals, and he, in turn, is just a martial arts academy exercise. Previously, he was able to destroy the animals of the imperial level, and now he has to study the national, the lowest level. How is it all? And at the same moment, the girl Qin Ying, the head of the third group, raises her hand, who at the same moment calls out to the teacher. She immediately stands up for the guy who doesn't understand anything, saying that this student has to do part-time jobs after classes because of difficult family circumstances. For sure, the reason for his sleep was, but she is not allowed to finish, as Kui Kang immediately intervenes in the conversation, who asks why she stands up for this scum. Anyway, intermediate testing will begin in a month. If he fails it, he will be kicked out of the academy. Qin tries to object to him, but is immediately interrupted by Liu Rusi, who asks everyone to calm down and shut up, and then turns to Xiao Ming himself. As long as he is a student of the academy, which means her too, then let him tell her where the weaknesses of abnormal hyenas are located. And if he does not answer, he will rewrite the initial manual about abnormal animals 10 times. The other students immediately start laughing. Yes, he probably doesn't even have a clue which page contains information about abnormal hyenas, so how can he even name its weaknesses? Moreover, the thickness of the initial allowance is so great that it can kill a person. I think Xiao will finish rewriting it 10 times, then when the cancer on the mountain whistles. Yeah, you wouldn't envy him. Ian turns to the teacher again, asking if she doesn't think this is too much, because the guy. But she is not allowed to finish again, because the blonde asks with irritation, is she really going to teach her to do her job? The brown-haired woman does not even know what to answer, while Kui Kang drills the headman with a look, still not understanding why she is always trying to protect this loser. Maybe there is something between them. But Min himself does not seem surprised or humiliated. He smiles, just the weak points of abnormal hyenas. Yes, the brunette has been well versed in them for a long time. In those days, when he just became a warrior, he cut out a whole flock of 80 hyenas in order to hone the art of wielding a blade. Therefore, he will point out their weak points even with his eyes closed. The others continue to mock him. This guy clearly knows how to show off. Yes, if he can name all the weak points of hyenas, then one of them will grab shit right here. And if he hesitates a little longer with the answer, then it will definitely come out sideways for him. The woman is surprised by such confidence on the part of her student before she agrees to listen to him. And then he approaches him, resting the handle of the whip on his chin, saying that if he answers incorrectly, then. But Xiao, immediately realizing what's what, immediately pulls away and shows 4 fingers, saying that as far as he knows, abnormal hyenas have 4 weak points. The woman frowns. Does this kid know about the 4th one? Meanwhile, the rest of the students immediately start laughing loudly, because everyone knows that this species has only 3 weak points. So where did the last one come from? One of them didn't even doubt that this scum didn't know anything. But what a smart guy this fool was building himself. Just hilarious. The drooping headman calls out to him, saying that in the initial manual there are really only 3 weak points in abnormal hyenas. He asks again incredulously, awkwardly rubbing his neck, before saying that there must be some mistake in their training materials. Kui Kang puts his finger forward, ordering the guy to stop playing God knows what. The book says in black and white that abnormal hyenas have only 3 weak points: the throat, the abdominal part and the eyes. Just think, an ordinary trash who failed the last exam thinks that he can question the teaching materials. The other students immediately start chuckling. He calls out to the teacher again, saying that Xiao Ming had the audacity not only to sleep in class, but also to question the reliability of educational materials. And he himself, as a punishment, offers to ban him from attending the academy for a while. Let him reflect a little on his actions. But Liu is silent, while the brunette decides to intervene himself, grinning and saying that the woman herself is able to decide. And where does he stick his pig snout? Naturally, this hurts someone else's ego, which makes the guy immediately cry out that Xiao Ming. Only Liu's firm and strict order does not allow him to finish. Enough is enough. Puya's face immediately spreads into a malicious grin. He himself begins to ask if the brunette heard it. The teacher herself told him to close his mouth, but the woman instead turns to the arrogant student, shouting his name and saying that she ordered Kayan to close her mouth, while her aura literally says that the lady is clearly furious, ready to teach him a lesson with a whip at any moment. The stunned guy immediately realizes that he has crossed a certain line, because he immediately mumbles incoherently that he is silent. When Liu Xusi turns back to the brunette, her mood immediately returns to normal, and the experienced aura as if blown away by the wind. She recalls that he recently said that abnormal hyenas have 4 weak points. In that case, where is the latter located? Even the majority of officially recognized warriors are not aware of this vulnerable point, so how does the kid know about it? Xiao begins to say with a slight smile that everything is very simple, since the 4th place is located. But then the abnormal beast, which had been sitting quietly before, abruptly begins to growl loudly, and the purple nape of her neck stands on end at all, and the yellow eyes immediately light up brighter. The iron cage literally trembles from someone else's huge body, and the former hero himself warily notices that something is wrong with him. And then, as if by order, with one sharp movement, the animal's head pushes the bars apart, completely breaking, which is why the startled blonde immediately turns around first, not understanding what and why just happened. The hyena instantly breaks out of the cage, immediately heading towards the students, which makes them instantly run away, shouting that the abnormal beast managed to get out, calling the teacher for help and trying to hide from the mad animal gaze as quickly as possible. And the abnormal animal itself is heading towards Kayan at great speed, wanting to tear him to pieces. Here we are. The guy, naturally, greatly frightened, immediately jerks to the side, shouting that he does not want to die, because he immediately grabs the shoulders of Qin Ying, who happened to be nearby in time, running behind her, substituting the unfortunate girl, who did not even have time to orient herself, for a snack. The beast, opening its mouth wide, rushes towards them in the air, flashing its sharp fangs and claws, while the upstart is almost shaking with fear, and the brown-haired woman herself can only stare into the open mouth of the monster, terrified to death. Liu Xusi shouts out the name of her student, intending to hurry to her, because her life depends on it, and Ying herself thinks that everything is over when the toothy and slobbering mouth is getting closer to her face, intending to bite off her entire head. But then Xiao Ming breaks off from the spot, who in an instant picks up the girl in front of the abnormal hyena, taking her in his arms in a wedding style, which, of course, she could not have expected, because at first she does not understand what happened and only enthusiastically shouts someone else's name, while the guy himself puts 2 fingers forward, menacingly pronouncing die to the emerging mutt, and then presses them to the hump between the muzzle and eyes, while the hyena still kept its mouth open. But after this touch, the entire front part of the abnormal beast begins to crack, before the animal falls dead, and a puddle of blood flows out of her mouth. Qin has already managed to get to her feet by this time. However, she is still desperately and fearfully clinging to someone else's chest. Min, with a slight smile, informs that the 4th vulnerable spot of abnormal hyenas is located between the eyes, while he puts his palm on the headman's waist, still holding, and the girl's cheeks are red with might and main. The guy asks if old age is okay, to which she shyly adjusts her hair and says that everything is fine with her before thanking the brunette. And she thinks with great admiration that for some reason at that moment she felt that she was completely safe. The abnormal hyena is one of the weakest animals of the national level. She shouldn't have the strength to destroy the iron cage. Standing in front of the corpse of the beast, he continues to reason. Something strange has clearly happened here. But then some small red fragment flies out of the animal's head, more like a star, which moves with confidence and falls into the hero's chest, while he can only look in surprise and clap his eyes. What the hell? But immediately a status window pops up, informing that the abnormal hyena has been destroyed. and 1 unit of life force has also been obtained. Xiao can only stare at this blue window, not understanding at all what just happened. And what does this unit of life force mean? On the window, when clicked, his name is displayed in the carrier tab, and he now has 11 units of life force. So, killing abnormal beasts grants him an increase in this very power. The brunette clenches his fist, smiling contentedly. This system is made right for him. Alarmed students who are standing a few meters away from the hero immediately point to what happened, urging them to look before asking if the hyena is dead. Others shout that she was killed with 1 blow by Xiao Ming, who, along with the girl, was still standing in front of the beast's corpse. After that, Liu Zhu squats down next to the deceased animal, gently touching the top of the hyena's head with 2 fingers. With just 1 swipe of his finger, he smashed the abnormal hyena's skull into pieces. Even she is not the fact that she could achieve such accuracy and calculations of the impact force. The woman tenses up, feeling the hero of the day standing behind her, before noticing that, after all, this Xiaoming is not as simple as it seems at first glance. Frightened students immediately call out to her, wondering if the hyena really died. Shaking with fear for her own life, the blonde gets up and responds positively, saying that they have nothing to fear since the abnormal beast is dead. She also appeals to the whole class to convey that the student who saved them recently said everything correctly. The 4th vulnerable spot of the abnormal hyena is really located between its eyes. However, this knowledge relates to the content of the higher level training course, and it has not yet been taught. The woman turns to face Min and gently puts her hand on his shoulder, saying that this time he showed himself well. She will report the incident so that he gets more academic points. The brunette thanks her with a smile, while the rest of the group immediately starts discussing what happened. None of them misheard. Did Liu Blackstockings not only compliment him, but also put on points? The sun suddenly rose in the west, or what? After that, the voice is given by the sofa warrior, who does not see anything in it at all. He was just lucky to find out about the hyena's 4th weak point from somewhere. If he had been in his place, he would have been able to, too. One of the guys also asks him not to talk nonsense, since even Kui Kang got scared and hid behind Qin Yin, and his strength doesn't even come close to an upstart. By the way, about him, if he is not mistaken, then he is constantly trying to get the attention of the headman. It looks like his case is hopeless now. The rest of the girls of the group with eyes full of hearts, looking at the brunette and say that you can't rely on such a cowardly guy like Kui at all. But Xiao Ming, Kang thinks that now he has specifically disgraced himself and needs to come up with a way to fix everything. Otherwise his image will come to an end in the eyes of the headman. The guy throws his hand up and asks who said he was scared. Actually, the guy was looking for a convenient position to attack and just didn't think that Xiao would get ahead of him. His family has managed to raise several of these creatures, so why would he be afraid? He put the shoe on someone else's dead body with a bang, continuing to say that even a scum whose vitality index is only 10, can do this, and his own is as much as 80 units. So, for him to kill such an animal is just a spit. Is he showing off? Well, no, after his recent facial expression, no one will believe him now. Everyone starts to laugh, covering their mouths with the palm of their hand, while the headman even closes his eyes in shame. Anyway, it's not a crime to curl up, so let him talk if you like. Huey immediately begins to be indignant. They say, how can these infections not believe him at all? Well, and if so, he will prove everything himself now. It's just an abnormal hyena, why would he be afraid? The guy pulls the dead beast by the scruff of the neck, forcing him to lift the upper part of the mouth, while he also grabs a huge fan, thrusting his head inside. The girls immediately mutter that this is some kind of abomination, and the headman herself still covers her face with her palm. Not understanding what he is doing at all, the departed Liu returns again after a while, and finds this picture, which makes her start to get annoyed, calling the stupid student by name and ordering him to stop fooling around. But he doesn't listen either, continuing to tell everyone to watch. He will prove that the abnormal hyena does not frighten him at all. And do they really think that scum like Xiao Ming can be put on a par with him? The brunette himself only smiles, crossing his arms over his chest, before thinking, this kid was teasing him all the time. I think it's time to give him unforgettable memories. He stretches out one palm, between the fingers of which there is a small stone, which instantly goes flying and hits the predator's mouth, causing it to slam shut, biting someone else's head. Kang did not skimp on a loud scream, almost a squeal, before he starts screaming and hitting the beast in the face, begging someone to help him because the hyena did not die. He even yells at the teacher. The back of his pants is covered in urine. The rest, of course, are shocked, even silent for a while, as if they don't know how to react to this. Is he an idiot? And on the other hand, it seems to serve him right. After a while, he still gets out of the mouth of a huge hyena, all out of breath and in the remaining gruel, saying that it was just a false alarm. The blonde, who towers over him, only fastidiously covers her mouth with her palm and informs that the incident is over. As for Qiang himself, he should hurry up and clean himself up, and change his pants at the same time. Immediately, the rest of the class begins to burst out laughing, not believing that this happened to such an upstart. Just think, in the history of the martial arts academy, this is perhaps a major precedent. They all continue to laugh when the unhappy and humiliated boy runs away from them, covering his 5th point with his hands. Min himself hopes that the memories of what happened will not overshadow his life. After a while, the lessons finally end and the students all leave the academy building. Some people talk, offering friends to visit Heroes Square, where a new maid cafe has opened. But the recovered Kiwi thinks with tension that after the incident with the hyena, his image in Qin Ying's eyes turned to dust, which means he must immediately fix everything. That's why the guy is standing in front of the school exit, holding a bouquet of scarlet roses behind his back. And here she is, the girl of his dreams. The headman comes out, tucking a lock of her brown hair behind her ear, holding a bag in her hand. Before Qiang calls out to her, immediately taking out a bouquet, the girl stops and turns to him, asking if he wanted anything. He immediately worships her, holding out flowers and saying that he feels guilty for the incident, and asks her to accept his apology. And he had heard that a new pastry shop had opened on Heroes Square. So how about Kiwi treat a nice lady to make amends? The headman immediately feels awkward, raising his palms and trying to somehow get away from such a gift. Apologies are already enough for her, so there is simply no need to spend money on sweets. The arrogant teenager awkwardly rubs his neck, intending to somehow object, but Xiao Ming passes by his side, as if out of spite, and all the girl's attention switches to him. That's why she waves her hand to the guy with flowers and apologizes, saying that she has more things to do, so bye-bye, to which Qiang does not really have time to react, only looking in surprise at the girl, who instantly moves away in the other direction. She runs up to Xiao Ming, who is calmly heading out of the academy, and with a blush on her cheeks thanks him for today. After all, he had saved her life. Also, the headman asks if he has free time, because the brown-haired woman has heard that a new pastry shop has opened on Heroes Square, and as a thank you, I would really like to treat him. Her face was literally glowing with joy, and her cheeks were flushed with blush. The guy turns his head to her and says that he still has things to do, but the headman herself continues to insist, asking when he will be free at all, awkwardly patting his hair, as if afraid to refuse Kim. He says that maybe tomorrow, then they will return to this conversation. Huey was standing to the side, who was watching this picture with irritation. It was because of Xiao Ming that his reputation came to an end, and now this scum still dared to target the girl he likes. Let the brunette be sure that he certainly won't get away with it. He squeezes the bouquet so much that the flowers begin to crumble. Xiao after a while comes to the Heroes Square, where there are 2 huge statues and a lot of people are wandering. 300 years ago, Lai Wang and Long Quan led a squad of warriors and defeated a fire-feathered bird of the Imperial level, and also destroyed the Flaming Tower, one of the 9 towers of darkness. They sowed fear in the hearts of the abnormal beasts and stopped their advance. It was only thanks to their feat that humanity managed to overcome the crisis that arose. Lai Wang and Long Quan are the heroes of humanity. It is their statues in all their glory that stand in the middle of the square. And if it weren't for them, people would have been waiting for extinction for a long time. It's just a pity that in recent years, the great Lai Wang and Long Quan have completely focused on improving without leaving the sacred capital. Now rarely anyone gets to see them in the flesh. Meanwhile, the real hero stood aside and listened to all these nonsense, clutching his bag. Vile traitors who have appropriated other people's merits have become heroes for all mankind. What an absurdity. He, Xiao Ming, swears on this very spot that one day the day will come when he will tear off their masks and reveal to the whole world the real faces of his former comrades. His eyes are blazing with hellish anger, and the guy himself only tightens his grip on the handle of his backpack. The brunette is heading away from this disgusting square, while Qiang is watching him, who orders 2 buggies with hyenas on a leash to keep up with him. And they will start when the offender is in that alley. And as if by order, Min himself is heading there. Despite the existence of the system, the city is not a place where it is so easy to find and kill abnormal animals. At least, such thoughts were floating in his head as he walked, looking at his feet. But then someone's dark sneaker enters the review of his own shoe. And as soon as he looks up, the same buggies appear in front of him. who block the way. One of them calls him by name and says that he has heard that he thinks too much about himself. Holding two hyenas by the chains, he continues to say that he really got tired of living, since he was smart enough to go against young Mr. Qian. Xiao just grunts in bewilderment and then asks who they are. But the surprises are not going to end there. Huey calls out to him from behind, flanked by people with bats. The upstart says that he, was going to eat sweets with Qin Yin. How, then, did it happen that he was here all alone? The brunette finally gives his voice, not moving at all from his seat, but simply turning his head to face other people's eyes. Did Qiang really want to run into trouble? Two abnormal hyenas plus a few rogues who are not even warriors. 1 minute will be more than enough. The purple-haired man points at him with his finger, angrily shouting that if it wasn't for him, today he would never have disgraced himself. That is why the teenager will not calm down until he teaches him a lesson. Xiao's scarlet eyes only start to sparkle more, and the aura around him only gets darker and darker. He asks again with a grin, is Kui going to teach him a lesson? And a pompous turkey thinks that a bunch of crooks will help him in this. Immediately, the man who had previously held the chains with hyenas begins to be indignant, shouting that this garbage with 10 units of vital force has completely confused the coast. The rest, as if hearing the order, immediately run to him, bringing the bits for subsequent strikes. From their mouths only cries can be heard, "Come on. Let this kid know what happens to those who get involved with the hyena gang. You ran into it yourself, kid. The claims are not against us. Get ready to gain an epiphany. We'll break all his bones and much more." While the brunette himself just continues to stand still, and men with weapons are running at him from all sides. And Qiang himself, who is standing aside, laughs maliciously. He's cool, isn't he? So let him show what he can do. These caustic phrases act on the teenager like a signal, which makes him instantly turn his head towards the source of the sound, and his irises only get more bloodshot. And at the same second, the guy hits everyone with one touch, like dummies, forcing every man to just fall down and cough up blood. Then a punch in the gut, then in the face, then in the groin. Literally everyone who was somehow hurt by the boy's blow was just lying on the ground now, one even with his trousers down. And Xiao himself again just stood calmly in place, holding his backpack in the palm of his hand. Both the man and Cutie at that moment looked not that surprised, but absolutely shocked. Min grins, seems to have got the right reaction, and then pulls off his tie, telling a classmate that such a non-entity like him does not shine against the brunette himself. The upstart, who was caught off guard, immediately shouts that he rejoices early, because this is not the end at all, and then turns to the man, ordering him to quickly release the hyenas from the chain, and he will settle the consequences himself. Hesitantly agreeing, the bandit releases the chains from his hand, saying that he has already heard rumors that the boy managed to kill the hyena with his bare hands. Therefore, they should find out whether it's bullshit or not. Muzzles are immediately removed from the mouths of abnormal animals, and they themselves begin to growl thoughtlessly, immediately starting to move. Their eyes sparkle as brightly as their fangs as they run at full speed from their master to the still-standing Xiao. Huey immediately starts laughing, making a snide face, shouting that the worthless hyena that was in the lesson cannot be compared with these beasts. They went through a special training. If it has reached where his place is, then it's not too late to kneel down and beg for mercy. And if he decides to resist, then let him not blame the violet-haired one if he is torn apart. But Ming didn't even flinch, still standing in the same place and looking in the direction of the distraught hyenas approaching him, who wanted nothing but to devour him. But he grins himself, saying that no matter what his hyenas are, there is no difference for him. The teenager drops his backpack, before he moves himself towards possible death at the same second, it seems, not worrying about it at all, while the animals kept opening their mouths wider. And then in an instant he jumps up, stretching his arms on both sides and resting all the same 2 fingers in the hump between the eyes. And then he lands on his feet. Hyenas, on the other hand, drop dead at the same moment, while blood is gushing from their mouths. The skull of both was simply destroyed with just one light push. What the hell? One punch again. Huey looks in amazement at how his own classmate managed to lay down 2 huge creatures without any problems. The man himself is shocked that his favorite hyenas were just taken and destroyed. And it's obvious that the kid is not a warrior, so how did he manage to instantly finish off his most ferocious beasts? At the same second, a blue status window pops up, in which 2 more vital forces have been added to 11 units. Now he has as many as 13. That's great. Xiao smiles softly, clenching his fist as 2 small red stars rush into his chest again. Startled and scared to death, Huey immediately rushes away from the scene of a recent crime. This kid is too strong, which is why we need to get out of here while he's still intact. But immediately Xiao appears behind his back, who says that since the brat has no more tricks left, now it's his turn. This only makes the purple-haired one tremble more, realizing that there is nothing else to do. He turns to face him and raises his palms in a gesture of surrender, begging the guy in front of him to stop, because maybe they could somehow come to an agreement. But instead, Min, without any hesitation, says to the opponent hold on before striking with a sharp movement with his toe shoes on the groin itself, which makes
Leave us a like and subscribe to our channel.